Hello, and welcome back to Visiting Dugout, a Fans First Sports Network production. I am Chrystal O'Keefe. We are preparing for the Crosstown Cup, as I shall call it, because I'm an old school person. So today I have Nick on to chat about the Cubs. Welcome. This is your first time here, so welcome.
Yes, thank you, thank you. It's fun to talk baseball. I do a podcast about movies, but I love the Cubs, so it's nice to get to talk about one of my other loves.
This is true. This is a whole different format. We love it,
Mm-hmm.
though.
Yeah.
So, speaking of the Cubs, you messaged me earlier that you were quite angry with them. But what is new with the Cubs right now?
Well, they're going through the whole when you're a contender and it's the week before the trade deadline. And I feel like they ran into a not good Royals team that just was like maybe the wrong team to face at this time. Because I'm sure a lot of them are thinking it's only human to think about, hey, what could we do to get better? And today it was just one of those games where it was like a home run derby for the Royals. I'm like, okay, this is driving me nuts. So yeah, this is the longest week in baseball is the week right before the trade deadline because like nothing's gonna happen until a day or two before. So
That series, however, with the Royals has knocked them a game back now,
mhm, yeah.
pushing the Brewers up. So how do you pass that? How do you get over this little hump that you're going through
So
right now?
I'm not too worried about them not being in first place right now because if the season ended today, they'd be one of the wild cards, so they'd be in the playoffs. But I do think it's like okay, the Brewers should peter off a little bit because they just won 11 in a row and then 12 out of 13. And it's like, okay, that's even the best teams in baseball. It's hard to win at that type of percentage all the time. So, but it is more of what I think's happening with the Cubs is they're starting to get some kind of leaks and cracks in the foundation of like the Cinderella stories are starting those carriages are starting to turn into pumpkins with some players and it's like okay you got to get aggressive because the one thing Milwaukee is a very scrappy team, and they've been like that for a long time. So I think this is good that Milwaukee's pushing them because it will force the front office to truly act big. But at the same time, it's like every single team in the playoff hunt has the same needs as the Cubs. So it is bizarre. Like every potential contender, including Milwaukee, who never make trade deadline moves except for like in '08 when they got Sabathia. That's like the only time I can remember them making like a big splash. And it's like every team needs the same thing. So it is going to be one of those like all weekend. It'll be nothing but rumors. And then we'll get to the day before. And I think it's going to be like boom, 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 boom. There's just going to be, but it's like every GM is hesitant about being the first to make a trade and then the first to trade away something. So yeah, it's good. God, it's gonna be fascinating. But it is. You could look at it glass half empty, glass half full. Like the Brewers had to go on an 11-game win streak to catch you, but at the same time, you played good baseball. You just though have also now dropped two series this month that you shouldn't be dropping. It's like you can't lose to the Twins, you can't lose to the Royals. Those are series that like you gotta. I know it's baseball and anything could happen, but it's like you gotta win those when it starts to get to crunch time. So yeah, I'm not sweating the Brewers overall, but it is like starting to get that little itchy feeling of like, uh-oh, a couple guys are starting to make me a little nervous. Just a little bit.
So, with that, because the trade deadline is so close, what are you kind of hoping for that the Cubs might do?
Well, at first, starting pitching's an always a must. Like I think every team could use more. It's like offensive linemen in the NFL. Once you think you have enough, you still need more. And I'm like, I've been torn because part of me is like they really need a right-handed stick, especially at third. Like, and it doesn't mean you are replacing Matt Shaw for the long term, but for this season, Matt Shaw could be your super utility guy. You gotta find a replacement at third. It doesn't even have to be Eugenio Suarez, just someone better than what you have. Because right now, your 9-hole in your lineup is almost an automatic out. And if you play like they did today, where it's Reese McGuire and Shaw back to back, it's like that's just two guys who don't get on base enough. So I think my priority would go starting pitcher, but like if you're going to spend big, starting pitcher, third baseman, then bullpen, because bullpens are so fickle. And we've seen big name bullpen arms. It happened to the White Sox when the Cubs traded Kimbrel to them. And then he was terrible. And it's like, that happens all the time, where a good bullpen arm on a crappy team goes to a contender and is nothing. And so I think though, the problem is you could only trade so much to get top ends of all of those. So it's like, okay, if you needed that one, probably starting pitcher, because right now it is their biggest weakness. They just don't have enough starting pitching that you could go, okay, he could give me 5 easily. It's you can't do too many more bullpen days with Brown anymore. Like you gotta get someone in there. And then I think the rest are, can you just find upgrades, not necessarily break the bank, but just like, can you find, even like if it's a guy who maybe isn't having a great year, but you think you could fix him, you could take a flyer on somebody, but you just need more arms in general.
Yeah, everyone does. I've been watching this unfold with Jonathan Cannon, who's pitching at the moment, who historically bad first innings, to the point where I'm just like, get this man off my team. But then he'll settle in, and he's settled in just fine. The Sox did come back and make up for the 4 runs that he allowed, which was so frustrating. But I'm sitting here and I was like, we have a bunch of like rookies and second year pitchers right now, and it's scary to think about. And while the bullpen is fairly solid, I can't really complain too much about the White Sox bullpen right now. But when you're taxing that bullpen as much as they sometimes do, and we do have these very young guys that are going in and hoping to make it to 5, you're just like, oh my gosh, who is there? What vet is out there that we could take? I mean, we in our Southside Sox chat today, we're like, oh well, Eric Fetty was just DFA'd by the Cardinals. Does he come back? What are we doing? Like that's where you kind of sit when you get really concerned about the pitching.
And the White Sox are in a tough spot, because when you're a team that's rebuilding, or you're not a good team, bullpens change year to year. So if you're the White Sox, you also might go, can we can we trade a couple of these arms that we don't think will be here past next year? Because in theory, they're not going to be a playoff team next year. Next year's like you're hoping to be like you're trying to inch closer and closer to 500 if you want to do it right, which we know the White Sox don't spend a lot of money, so it's going to be developing. And so it's like any pitching prospect on your team or pitcher who's above like 28 would be like someone who could be like, can we get something? And I actually kind of hope they keep Luis Robert, because it's like I get why they would want to trade him, but it's also like, well, you don't have to though. And if he's finally turned a corner, why not then you have nothing to lose if you're the White Sox at this point, seeing if he could turn his career around. It's not like Eloy where like you're like, okay, this is completely lost. So, but yeah, it's they're in a weird spot. Anytime you're rebuilding and you have good pitching in any facet, it's like, how old are they? Because if they're not young, you might as well trade them, because they probably won't be here when you turn the corner.
Yeah. Before we break into the series, because I was going to bring up some trade bait, but he's one of our pitchers for the series. So before we get to him, how are you feeling overall about this Cubs series? Because you mentioned, leaks are being exposed at this point, but they're a clear contender this year.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling about this season?
What I feel the Cubs is a really good baseball team that has overcome their deficiencies, but now they're kind of hitting the point where, and it's tough in baseball, because you could see a great pitcher be amazing till July, and then in August and September they fall apart. I think like Drew Pomeranz is a great example. He was unhittable for the first 3 months. His last couple outings have been really bad, and it's like, okay, this is where I'm getting a little nervous, is like some of these Cinderella stories now are really starting to fall off. And then Offensively, the problem is you have a lot of games like today where Dansby Swanson, as good as he is defensively, it's like he'll get his base hits when no one's on base. As soon as guys get on, it's like swing and miss at everything or hit into a double play, or like he had an infield single today that he just got lucky that the defender didn't get to it quick enough. So it's like he's always putting the ball on the ground or striking out. And it's like Ian Happ goes through his waves. And really this Cubs offense, while it's been very good, and I'm not complaining overall, when the top four guys aren't doing it, they're not getting that same production from the bottom five like they were for the first few months. So I do think that the team, like I said, they're still a very good team. It's just they've been hit with a few things. I give them a lot of credit. You've missed at 1.3 starting pitchers, and 2 of them are your top 2. So the fact that you have this record is impressive. But then again, the Dodgers do it every year too. They seemingly throw you and me out there to start, and they'll find ways to win. So it's like this is just part of if you're going to be a good team at baseball. But I'm still very optimistic. I just am like, but they have to add. It's one of those things. If they don't, that's when I'll get worried, because they're kind of showing the farm system they love to brag about is very paper thin when it comes to like coming up to impact the team now. So pitching wise, it's not like they have a ton of options down there where they could just call up anybody. I'm a little surprised like Jordan Wicks hasn't gotten more play, especially with how I like Ben Brown, but it's like, sorry, kid, you can't have 2 pitches and be a starting pitcher. It's just not how it is. Like, I think he's one of those guys that they were hoping would pitch well and then try to use him in a package to get someone else. And like he did the opposite. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's not good, buddy. But yeah, I'm still very optimistic. I still think they'll make the playoffs, but I think if they want to be like a legitimate World Series contender, they have to add either 3 players who could just be upgrades in some fashion, or 1 really dynamite player and then just something, So, but I could definitely see them. I'm curious if they're talking to a team like Arizona, where you could try to maybe package like one of their struggling pitchers with Eugenio Suarez and be like, let me get at least something, because it's going to cost a lot to get. He's like the best bat available. Like everyone wants him, and Arizona might not even trade him. So if you're Arizona, you really are like the belle of the ball at the trade deadline, because if you decide to trade, you could get a lot for him.
And he's so dang charming too.
He is.
Like
And he's got 36 home runs. It's nuts. It's like he's just a machine. And how often does a bat like that become usually the trade deadline, it is guys like Mike Tauchman, like a veteran who you're like, oh, I could stick him in here to start every couple of games, start a couple games here and there, or just give us depth. Or it's usually stuff like that. You very rarely get like a impact bat who'd come in and bat 3rd or 4th or 2nd, depending on your lineup. So yeah, he's going to be a very interesting name to watch. And I'm very curious if Arizona kind of swallows the pride on this season and goes, look, it's too big of a jumble of teams. Let's get something for them. So.
Well, on that note, we'll take a quick little break and come back and talk about this Crosstown series. Woo!
Woohoo!
Oh boy, always these series, they're always a hot mess. I avoid them like the plague.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I hope there's juice to it this year, because last year there wasn't.
Yeah.
And I think there will be, because the Cubs are a playoff team. The White Sox, while record-wise are not good, they're playing better baseball.
Mm-hmm.
But this is pretty much a must-win series for the Cubs. It's like you can't go and lose. And again, no offense to the White Sox, but you need to be beating these teams right now. You cannot be losing to teams that are 20 games under 500, or like the Royals were. I forget what their record was, but they were pretty bad too. And it's like you just can't lose right now to these teams, because this is where like every single series you are going to be under the microscope, because you're trying to win your division, but B, if you're going to get in the wild card, man, there's a lot of teams, and unfortunately for you, you're in that hodgepodge of like, there's like 6 really good records in the NL, and all of them, like someone's going to miss. Like, you don't want to be the team. And if you're being a skeptical Cubs fan, they have missed the last 2 years when they've had a shot. So you kind of have to prove it now. This is kind of like the put up or shut up season for, I think, my favorite baseball team. But yeah, I'm curious. What is the pitching matchup on Friday for them? That's what I'm.
Okay, so you're gonna see our trade bait, Adrian Houser.
Okay, that's someone who I'm curious if they maybe call the White Sox on and see.
That he's one we could possibly unfortunately lose, and I would be super bummed. He's below 2 for his ERA, and we'll see Shota for the Cubs, which is fun and exciting, and he's a blast to watch.
Yeah, that should be a good matchup. It should be a fun. Yeah, because Shota's been really good. And it's like, okay, you feel good with him on the bump. You're also, though, but again, it's like, is this a trap series for the Cubs? That's what I do get worried about. Is it's like, it's the Crosstown, and there's like the last few years, it's been so dead. Of like, people are just like, who gives a crap? Like when both teams are bad, as long as one team is good, it's fun. But I do think it's like, okay, they kind of need, if you're going to make these fun again, like they have to be more compelling. And I do think right now it is an interesting, like, because it's also big for the White Sox, because if you're going to be dangling guys at the trade deadline, you need every game counts again for the White Sox. Like you want guys, again, Mike Tauchman's a guy, probably a good trade candidate to just get you something. And maybe you package him with a Houser or somebody. And it's like, do you get a better prospect because of that? So yeah, it's going to be a good pitching matchup. Then is it Cade Horton on Saturday for the Cubs? I think. Yeah, so it's
Savali, who's
okay.
He's a pitcher.
Didn't he start off really good and then he's like kind of tapered off a little? Was he the one who started really good for the White Sox?
He did. He actually did start off fairly well. Came from the Brewers, and I was fine with him. Now he has kind of turned into a pumpkin, like we've talked about. A few of these players so far have. He's been very frustrating to watch. And then you'll also see Sean Burke. I don't know who we see Cubs wise on Sunday. That's not listed yet, but
yeah, God, probably a bullpen day. Ugh.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're gonna get a bullpen day if it's Sean Burke starting. To be completely honest.
Oh,
So,
that is gonna be a very unappealing pitching matchup on Sunday. Oh God.
Yeah,
Ugh.
I'm gonna be busy doing anything else on Sunday. Yeah, kind of tough. And again, Hauser has been a delight. I'm gonna be so bummed when he goes to a better team. In the end of this month. So it's okay. But anyway, what can you tell me about Cubs pitching? You don't seem super high on Cubs pitching right now.
No, it's I just, outside of the two guys, well, there's three guys right now you could count on. Shota and Boyd have been great. Like Boyd's one of the best stories in baseball. It's such a compelling that he might just be one of those guys who just needed to be healthy. And baseball's a very funky sport where all of a sudden a guy at 36 and you're like, he's just some throw-in signing we're doing and he's great. It happens. The bullpen, it does it all the time. So their bullpen, I'm not super worried about. Their starting pitching, I am, only because right now you just don't have the bodies. I love Cade Horton. I'm very excited to see him keep going. I also think, for everyone who gets worried about innings with a young pitcher, I'm like, okay, but you know what? You got to callous these arms too, because we see it all the time. A young pitcher where they're like, no, don't want to do too many innings. And then the next year he goes to pitch and then he needs Tommy John. And it's like, well, what has playing it safe ever done? And I'm not saying go out there and let him throw 99 pitches a game, but he's going to be a guy you're going to have to rely on down the stretch big time. And you could maybe limit his innings, but I mean, if he's throwing well, let him do it, because I think organizations just get too worried about young pitchers and they don't let them. It's kind of like in the NFL with practices being so soft, and it's like, well, that's not going to help them callous their bodies up. And I don't like to be one of those old man, yelling at the clouds, but it's like, if pitchers were able to go like they used to without the same type of training and same type of resources, you could push a guy past his innings limit and see. It doesn't mean he's automatically going to break down. And I feel like that's always the thinking is, no, he's going to hit these innings and then we're going to lose him for 3 years. And it's like, that, I don't know. So the Cubs starting pitching, similar to how many guys you could count on, it's like a 3 out of 5. I feel pretty good 3 days. And then there's 2 days where like today with Colin Ray, where it's like, Colin Ray, you don't know what Ray you're going to get. A bullpen game is always makes me itchy and scratchy, especially when Ben Brown's coming out in the second inning, and it's like he's either going to be really good or man, he just doesn't have it. And which I was a really big fan of his. I really was pulling for him, and it's like you're just when you're trying to win. If this Cubs team was 20 games under, you keep throwing Ben Brown and you let him work through it. But like you're trying to win a World Series, you kind of have to be a dick. And be like, no, sorry, we don't care. I'm not saying you have to trade him, but it's also like he might just have to spend the rest of the year in AAA and learn how to throw a changeup. Because again, this is not a time to be a nice guy. This is like you got to be nose to the grindstone. You are trying to win a championship, and you might have to be brutal with some of your young players who aren't developing. And he's not even that young, so I mean, he's young, but not like super young.
That is like my most boomer take because I sit there and I'm like, well, back in my day, pitchers were going 7 innings. I mean, I'm pushing 40. I can say that. That's my.
I'll be 36 in November. So yes, we grew up in a time where they let pitchers pitch.
Yeah, today was a big White Sox anniversary with Mark Buehrle, and when I think about Buehrle, I'm just like, yeah. He pitched forever. He was a workhorse. We need more. We need more people like him. We need more Johnny Cuetos in the world.
Well,
another big
also,
workhorse.
Yeah, you're just like your 05 championship, you'll never see 4 starting pitchers go 9 innings in a series ever again, probably because that is just I don't think teams give pitchers enough opportunity, and I just think a lot of pitchers can't. Or then again, I don't know because their coaches won't let them or the managers won't let them. But like what they did in those 4 games is so impressive that it's like, wow, you had 4 starters go complete games. Like, and I know one of the games went into extras, but still, it's like that's insane. So yeah, you need workhorses again. John Lester was another guy for like the Cubs. Like the dude never wanted to get pulled out of a game, and it's like you just. And it's not that I don't think pitchers want to do it. I just think it's like their hands are tied. And this is just how organizations are. And, Joe Madden used to talk about it. Like, you got to mix analytics with your gut. And he used to do it with Kyle Hendricks, which used to drive me nuts because he'd have such a quick hook on Hendricks. And it's like, why don't you just let him have some rope? Even in 2016 when he was up for a Cy Young. And it's like, but yeah, I don't know. I just hope they don't baby Cade Horton, and I'm afraid they will. But again, I'm also, knock on wood, hopeful that they don't. And they're like, hey, just keep pitching the way you're doing it, dude. You're showing you belong. Ideally, you'd be the number 4 starter in a playoff rotation right now. So again, it's going to depend on who they add. But like I said, I'm getting to like my worry levels, like out of 10, it's like a 4.5 right now with pitching overall because they're still doing well, but it's like you're also 2 injuries away from being really screwed. So that's why it's like, okay, you got to add. And it's why this next week's going to feel like a month waiting to see who they add. And if the Brewers could just stop winning for a couple of games would be nice.
Yeah, I get that. So back with this series, obviously the Cubs they're doing great, and I'm very happy for you. I can't hate other Chicago teams, even if I want to. It's hard for me to do it. So like, good on the Cubs for being what they are right now. So with that, which player do you think might be the biggest threat to the White Sox right now?
Well, here I'll do both. So I think for the Cubs' perspective, the biggest threat right now is Robert because he's been heating up, and it's like. The Cubs, like Shota on Friday, is he's not a power pitcher, and you got to be careful. But I mean, Shota's been very good about not giving up the long ball right now. But like, that is a guy who is so hot and like finally starting to get it figured out again. And I do kind of root for a guy like him because this city needs more good young players.
Yes.
It's like what PCA's doing. So like for the White Sox, I think as long as he plays, it's Kyle Tucker. Because to me, he's the hardest at bat the Cubs have. And he will make every pitcher work. And generally, if he gets out, he works full count. So if it's like the player to watch for the White Sox, his perspective, it'd be Kyle Tucker. You don't want him driving up your pitch count, especially in a ballpark we know like at the rate where if it's hot out, like it's going to be this weekend, if pitchers are not on their game, this can be a home run derby because there's plenty of guys on the Cubs who could smack the ball around, but you also don't want to sleep on the White Sox. Like it's definitely a series that I could see more high scoring games or a couple of like really good pitching duels. And then Sunday to me just is going to be a mosh pit of like, I have no idea what to expect, but yeah, I could definitely see Robert having a good series. And again, anyone who's a trade person, like you said, Houser, right? That's his, he could shove if he's on his game. And it's like, that's a guy, if I'm the Cubs on Friday, you got to jump on him early. If that's anything, you want to jump on these starting pitchers early, especially when it's going to be as hot out that it was disgusting outside today. So it's going to be like that this whole weekend. So, but yeah, and I think for the Cubs, it's got to be like Tucker needs to get back in the lineup. The lineup is just not the same when he's out of it. And it showed today. Like he just helps every single person in that lineup have a better at bat.
I will say for the Cubs, do not sleep on Colson Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
He went to Arizona. They fixed him. They did something to this kid. He's phenomenal now. He just hit his second home run. Like yesterday was his first Major League Baseball home run, and he just hit one to tie the game earlier. So he has been so fun, and he's very fast, and he's just got a very high baseball IQ.
Yeah, and as a Cubs fan, I don't root for the White Sox, but I don't hate them. Yeah. I feel bad for them because I hate their owner because he's also the owner of my favorite basketball team, and I hate the Reinsdorfs. So, like, for the White Sox, I felt really bad for Colson Montgomery when they talked about what they did with him because it's like, that's embarrassing. And I feel for a young player because you can't hide that stuff in 2025. Everything gets made public. And so it was like, God, that's embarrassing that they're like, we're not even sending you to AAA. We're literally putting you on like a special assignment to learn how to swing a bat.
Yeah.
And he's coming up and he's playing great. And it's like, awesome. That's good. Plus, in this city, baseball is super exciting when both teams have something to play for. And I think for the White Sox, they're still a few years away, but at least their arrow's finally pointing upward. If just Jerry Reinsdorf gets out of the way. Like, yeah, that's also always a big if.
We are very impatiently waiting for 2029.
Yeah.
Like that's all I think White Sox fans are focused on. It's either him,
Yeah, which is I'd say it's morbid to think that, but he is actually in his late 80s, so it's not that.
He's almost 90.
Yeah.
Like when I think of Jerry Reinsdorf, so my grandpa will be turning 89 in a couple of days. And I think about my grandpa owning not one, but two professional teams. There's no way.
Yeah.
Absolutely
and seemingly not caring about one of them. Like, they don't seem to care about the Bulls. It's such a cash cow. And it's like, just sell them. What are you going to do with billions of dollars? Like, and again, easy for me to say it's not my money, but it's not like they would be hurting if they sold and they'd be like, well, we're never going to have money again. It's like, or hire someone and be like, we'll still own the Bulls, but you are literally doing everything. Mm-hmm. You're going to fire people. You're going to hire people. Just get out of the way. Like they just, again, it's almost the animosity I have towards the White Sox is just because I can't stand the Reinsdorfs and like, like they just lucked out that Jordan fell to them. Otherwise, I don't know where we'd be in the basketball world if it wasn't for Michael Jordan. I think it's like one of those like what if scenarios. Like if the Bulls didn't get Michael, would we still be waiting for an NBA championship in the city? And we probably would be still waiting. So
Yeah, it would have been the Pacers
yeah,
winning all of those. Instead,
hmm
the Pacers or the Knicks, it would have been those two and only
yeah,
those
the Knicks
two.
would have finally. Well, depending on where Jordan went, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah,
they would have
true.
been like New York would have been like, wow, we would have had at least 2 titles in the '90s instead, and the Bulls would be sitting there going, well, just give us some more time. We have to keep doing nothing.
One thing I especially kind of loathe about Jerry, and I've noticed it more now. Like I think it struck me this year. And again, 20 years since the World Series. That is cool. I understand why they're nostalgic about that. And Mark just got his statue, and that's all great. But I've realized that Jerry just cares about the nostalgia. He is going to run those 90s Bulls into the ground because
Mhm.
that's why people are still such big fans. That's why
Yeah.
people are still spending as much money. I mean, it's insane just to go to a
Mhm.
Bulls game. Um,
And I'll give them credit at a Bulls game. It's an awesome time. I've been the
yeah,
last couple of years a few times, but it's like that place is only selling out because of what the Bulls did in the '90s, and eventually you got to do something. And it's just they're in like the one sport that like to be in the middle is the worst. And I feel like the Bulls are even worse than that because they're still not bad enough to like ever get a top 3 pick, and they just are content with being mediocre. And it drives me crazy because they don't have a plan. They just know that the East is so weak. And it's like you can't do that in baseball because in baseball, every season could ebb and flow. Like you could, if you're 500, you're in a much better spot. Whereas in basketball, it's like, no, this is the worst. And they're not even 500. They're below 500. But the East just sucks. So yeah, sorry, not to make this a Jerry Reinsdorf, podcast, but
I mean,
it's hard to not.
unfortunately, yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's what I deal with on a
Mm.
daily basis. We don't love him in this house, and he's gonna he's got to realize pretty soon he's getting to the point where like these younger kids don't give a shit about the 90s Bulls,
Yeah.
and it's not gonna sell tickets anymore.
Yeah.
So
No.
back to this
Mhm.
series. We'll ignore Jerry for the rest of this time. What are the keys for the Cubs to take this series?
I think, well, starting with the first 2 pitchers we talked about, Shota and Cade Horton, I think they got to be on their games this weekend. Again, it's going to be very hot out. You got to be at least 5 strong innings. Um, and I think for the Cubs offense, you got to get back to like making pitchers work and then capitalizing on it. And I feel like this Royals series, while I know they won the other day 6-0, it felt like a lot of times they'd be like, get a guy on, get another guy on. And then it was like pop out, strikeout. It's like you're making pitchers work, but then they're just getting you out quickly. And, I think a guy like PCA needs to have a big series because I feel like he's getting in that funk where since he's not a patient hitter, he's trying to swing his way out of his funk. And like he hit a home run today, but he also had a couple bad strikeouts. And it's like they were quick at bats. And it's like, he's not the guy who could be patient at the plate when he's going through a funk. And I think he needs to be patient because let pitchers make mistakes to you. Don't try to hit your way out of your slump. So I think he's a guy. I think getting Tucker back will help him hopefully. And same thing with Seiya. Seiya had a really weird series, like, that error today. And it's like, oh, Jesus, guys, like today looked like a getaway day for them where they just did not have any focus or anything. And it's like, what are you guys doing? This is not the time to do that, especially with a day off tomorrow. So, yeah, I think that would be my big key is like make their pitchers work. Let the heat be to your advantage. Make them sweat it out and really try to jump on them early.
So in that, and like a turn of that, what fears are you having heading into this series?
Um, well, like Sunday, not knowing who is in your rotation, it always is scary. Like, I think that has me worried. I think the team not playing bad, but just maybe not having the mojo they were having. I think what I'm worried about is did this Royal series maybe like are they going to have one of those like maybe bad stretches that teams always have? And this would not be the time to do it. So that would be like a worry in my head is like, do you take the White Sox for granted because they're, 20 something games under 500? It'll feel like a bigger series for the White Sox because like, hey, if you could take care of the Cubs, you're feeling good about the way you've been playing. For the Cubs, it's like you got to stay focused. And it felt like this Royals series, they were not focused. So my fear would be that they just have a bad week overall. And it's like, okay, this is not the time to do it. So, and hopefully as long as Tucker's back offensively, then I'm not that worried. But if he's going to be out another couple games, that does have me worried because it's just a different team when he's not in the lineup. And play Michael Busch every day. Enough with Turner. I'm done. Like he's 40. He does very little. Like let Busch hit against everybody. You have nothing to lose letting Busch have at bats because it's not like Turner's killing the ball. So that's my note to Craig Counsell.
Be sure to tag him in this. Maybe he'll listen. I don't even know that he's on social media. I wouldn't follow him anyway. So, moving away from our teams, we can have a little bit more fun because I feel like sometimes we commiserate on what's going wrong with our teams. But what have you been noticing just overall? And this could be things you love, things you hate, hot takes, really anything.
Yeah, I think I see a lot of so the problem I have is like I'll see a lot of Cub fan hot takes of like, oh, this team sucks. See, like they're always waiting for the shoe to drop. Mm-hmm. And part of me though gets it because this city has just beaten fan bases into the ground where every time we try to get optimistic, we get kicked in the crotch. And it's like, again, I don't think this Cubs team's going to do that because I think they are a good team. But it's not like they're so good that a bad slump can't screw them because I still do think like you just got to be careful. Like you really want to win the division. You want to lock in a guaranteed playoff spot. And I think that's the easiest way to do it is just win your division. It's also, I feel like social media is hard because you get a lot of extremes. Yeah. And so, I don't think that fans have been overreacting too much, but I think for both teams, you just get your pessimistic fans because neither team has given us a lot to root for the last few years, so my thing would just be try to enjoy this. Cause I think as a fan base, it's hard to always not see the finish line and be worried that we're not going to cross it. And it's like, live in the moment more, enjoy it, because it's been a really fun season, and we don't know. They could go on a great win streak, or all of a sudden they could get hit with injuries galore, and all of a sudden you're going into September and you're like, we barely can feel the team. We are so beaten up, and it happens to teams. So I try to do that with football, and basketball is hard because I just know how the NBA is. I feel like that one you pretty much know, like, who are the best teams, and then who's kind of just crap, and it's like, so that's hard, but I think for like baseball, it's such a long season. It's hard not to want to only think about October, and it's hard. Like you got to try to live in the moment more, and remember that every baseball game is not football. And I do think in this city, because the Bears are the number one team, like you get in that mentality of like every loss in baseball feels worse, and it doesn't mean you can't be angry at a loss. Like today, that sucked. But I'm not going to like let it ruin my day like when the Bears lose on Sunday and you're like, oh, great. I just wasted my whole day. Like, it sucks. Like this is like, okay, it sucked. Now go take care of business against the White Sox. If you do that, wash the taste out of your mouth. If you let the White Sox take care of business against you, well, then you're going to get a very edgy fan base going into the trade deadline. So...
Exactly. If it turns out wonky for the Cubs, it's going to get. This is why I don't check Twitter very often.
That's a good call.
I've stayed away. I've stayed in like my little kind of blue sky every once in a while. Instagram where nobody cares about baseball, and I stay away from how toxic it can be because boy, it gets ugly really fast over there.
It does.
That's what I've got for you. So thank
you
so much for coming on and talking about this. I have to watch Friday because I'm covering that game, but otherwise I am staying so far away from this.
Yeah, I will be. It's gonna be a busy weekend, so I'm gonna either try to listen to it or I'll be checking like on the ESPN, watching the little dots and seeing how they're doing. I'm actually glad I'm busy this weekend because then I'll be like, okay, I won't be completely glued to my TV because again, when you're in this race and everything's competitive and you're just waiting for stuff, it's like oh, it could get exhausting too. So, but yeah, I'm very intrigued about how they're going to do this series. So we'll see. Hopefully, it's good. Hopefully,
I've got a concert Saturday night, so
nice.
I don't even have to look. I'm just gonna put my phone down,
Yeah,
live in
and
that
just check after.
and just be happier with my life.
Exactly. Yeah,
Baseball's not gonna ruin my night.
it's a good call.
All right, well, please just let people know where they can find you and your podcast in case we've got some movie crossover here.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a Nick Flicks podcast. It's on Apple and Spotify. And if you want to follow me on social media, it's Nick Flicks Pod on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram. Just talk movies. I do need to do a sports episode because there's, especially like baseball movies, I feel like there's a lot, especially in the 90s, that I could talk about. So, but yeah, just a big movie nerd who's also a Cubs and Bears and Bulls fan. So, yeah, just come and chat about movies with me, or Cubs, or Bulls, or Bears, or even White Sox.
You got to do Moneyball.
Yeah.
That is my favorite baseball movie.
I almost want to do like a serious sports movie, and then like the ones like Sandlot and like Angels in the Outfield, like all the like just 90s baseball movies because there were so many. So
yeah, so good.
yeah.
League of Their Own, another
League of Their Own, Major League, Rookie of the Year. There's plenty to choose from for the 90s. So
We've been recently showing, I have a teenager and an almost teenager. So we've been slowly showing them like these movies. So we showed our son. It was like, it's time for Major League. It's time that he watches this.
Love that movie. It's so good.
And then like we had to record them watching The Sandlot for like the tobacco ride scene. We're like, we have to get there. So my husband's like filming their reactions to these kids just hurling everywhere.
That is a funny scene. When they're just like, Shaw. Yeah, the
that
good
movie
stuff.
is one of the best already.
Yeah.
So we were just like, it's time for you guys to watch this. You have to like watch these classics. And so
yeah, we want to show our son The Sandlot. So we have almost 7 and a 5-year-old. They're both autistic, and they both love watching movies with me. But my oldest son Theo's really getting into watching the Cubs with me, which has been like a lot of fun. So I'm like, oh good, we got our movies together and our shows, and now you're starting to watch Cubs games with me. And he'll do the like, Daddy, what's the score of the Cubs game? And I'll tell him, and if they lose, he just goes, oh. I'm like, I know, buddy. They can't win them all. Trust me.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much. Best of luck in this series. Should be interesting no matter what happens. So. All right.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Of course. Bye.
Bye.